What's up, everybody? The Book of Boba Fett is what's up. Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm. We are now officially halfway through the Book of Boba Fett, and on the one hand, I can't believe we made it this far, this quick, but at the same time, I'm kind of sad that right now we only have like 4 episodes left, because I'm really enjoying the show. I wouldn't necessarily say I like this show more than The Mandalorian, but I'm definitely really enjoying this show, and it'll be sad to see it go, but on the flip side, then I can rewatch it again. And now, going back into the episode itself, this episode is mostly centered around the flashback era of the Book of Boba Fett's timeline, shall we put it that way. And I have been on record, I've said this multiple times on these episodic recaps that I've been doing. The flashbacks are my favorite part about the show. I love the flashbacks. I love all the stuff leading up to the beginning of the Book of Boba Fett and how Boba Fett eventually met Fennec Shand and Din Djarin, and that whole storyline from The Mandalorian Season 2 happened. Wasn't really that much of a fan of the present day stuff of Book of Boba Fett trying to build up his name, I should say, as the new daimyo of Tatooine. Although I did like last week's episode, the flashback stuff are just better. But now we got pretty much all of the flashback stuff out of the way, which kind of saddens me because it means we probably won't be seeing that side of the Book of Boba Fett anymore. But you know, who knows? I'm hopeful we might get to see some more of it. Obviously, the majority of the episode, like I said, takes place in the past of Book of Boba Fett, after finding out that the Tusken Raiders, who essentially rescued him, well, didn't really rescue him, but just sort of accepted him as one of their own, accepted him into their tribe of Tusken Raiders, who raised him essentially, who taught him everything he knows about being this new chapter of his life. They're all dead, and now Boba Fett is just wandering the sand dunes of Tatooine on his own, with nothing but just his bantha and an axe to grind, as they say, with the Nikto Swoop gang. I believe that's their name. And obviously he makes his way to what was formerly known as Jabba the Hutt's palace, now ruled by Bib Fortuna. A lot of the stuff in this, a lot of the flashback stuff in this episode is stuff we already know, stuff that we kind of already can guess how they happened, but it's sometimes nice to get the full context of how it happened, realizing that Boba Fett couldn't really storm the palace on his own. He needed some help, and how fortunate was he that he eventually met the company of Fennec Shand, left for dead by Din Djarin, who he took her to the modification station, where we kind of get to see the bikers from the present day of Book of Boba Fett, the ones that he hired in the last episode. Here's one of the negatives of this episode. I didn't specifically need to see those bikers there. I mean, obviously we know they exist. We know that Boba Fett will eventually make his way to finding them and hiring them. I don't think we needed to see them this early in his specific timeline. I feel like that was a little bit cheesy, but, you know, whatever. They show up, and Boba Fett does what he needed to do. He repairs Fennec Shand. He pays the guy to fix her, to make sure she doesn't die, and then obviously he then talks to her. There's some sort of mutual familiarity. I believe that's the word I was looking for, because obviously Fennec Shand was a bounty hunter during the time of the Clone Wars, and more specifically during the Bad Batch era. So she knows who Boba Fett is. Obviously she knows who Jango Fett is, which is kind of weird to me. It's weird to think about it, but Boba Fett was kind of a child still, or at least a teenager at the very least, while Fennec Shand was running around finding Cad Bane and fighting the Bad Batch in the Bad Batch show, which is it's interesting to think about it in those terms. And now they're joining forces. It's weird how Star Wars can do that. It takes two mostly unrelated characters from two separate eras and brings them back joined forces in a different era. So I like that Star Wars sometimes do that. Well, more times than not, as the case may seem in more recent years. But that being said, they then plan an attack plan to storm formerly Jabba the Hutt's palace to reclaim this beauty, the Slave One, Boba Fett's signature starship. Well, technically Jango Fett's signature starship, but most people know it as Boba Fett's signature starship, the Slave One. I like the storming of the castle, as they say. It was nice to see that little droid again, which I believe it's a droid we've seen a lot in the Clone Wars. It's nice to finally see it in live action for the first time. The chef droid was kind of funny. I like that it's basically just General Grievous in a way, but it's got 6 arms with, butcher knives in each hand, and he swings them around like that. And the droid really gave Boba Fett some trouble, which shows you how much Boba Fett has been out of the action while being with the Tusken Raiders. He's been out of the action. Even these droids give him problems. And like I said last week, I'm a little tired of Boba Fett continuously getting his ass kicked, and he has to wait for Fennec Shand to save him. I'd like Boba Fett to score up some wins on his own for a change. I'm guessing that we're going to get to see that, but it just shows you how much, like I said, Boba Fett has been out of the bounty hunting business, while Fennec Shand has not been. So there's that. Obviously, they eventually managed to make their way to the Slave One, and just like its owner, Slave One is still it's in good condition, but a little rusty. So it takes some time for Boba Fett to get the handle on his own ship, to remember which button does what and what does when, and they eventually manage to escape. Obviously, we all know they're coming back to the palace to claim the throne that was originally owned by Jabba the Hutt. Now, currently in that particular point of the show, by Bib Fortuna. Then, obviously, one of my favorite scenes is Boba Fett going to take revenge on the Nikto Swoop gang, decimating them all as vengeance for what they did to his fellow Tusken Raiders. Then, a scene that I didn't think was necessary at first, Boba Fett going back to the Sarlacc pit to look for his armor, still thinking that his armor is there. Obviously, we as the audience know that the armor is not there, that the Jabbas took it away from him and then eventually sold it off to Cobb Vanth. But it's something you have to remember. Boba Fett was only slightly conscious during that scene with the Jawas, but then again he was a little bit conscious, so it's a little weird to me that Boba Fett doesn't remember the Jawas taking the armor away from him. Instead, he still thinks that his armor is inside the Sarlacc pit. We finally get to see a really good look at the inside of a Sarlacc pit, and then finally justifies the special editions version of the Sarlacc pit with the mouth crawling on a stalk, crawling out of the inside of the Sarlacc pit, which wasn't in the original Star Wars. That was a special editions, later addition to the Sarlacc lore. But we finally get to see that part in action. And another thing that I like about these Filoni Favreau shows of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett is that it takes a lot of the stuff that a lot of people have complained about George Lucas's Star Wars post the original trilogy, like some stuff in the special editions, like certain stuff in the prequels, and it gives merits to them. It justifies their existence, which I'm fine with. I'm okay with them doing that. But then obviously they didn't drop a seismic charge into the mouth of the Sarlacc pit, destroying it, which is something I love. I love every time you get to see the seismic charges in action. I squealed like a little girl when they used them in The Mandalorian, and it's always a great thing when you can hear the sound that these things make. I think they're one of the best sound effects in Star Wars in general. But then obviously, finally, Boba Fett comes to the conclusion that we all knew he was going to get to eventually. The armor's not there, and he has to look for it some other way. And then we're mostly back to the present day, it still feels weird calling it present day, but for the context of this show, it's present day. And Boba Fett is now completely healed, so he won't be needing his bacta tank too much, unless of course he gets injured again and he's forced to be put back into the bacta tank. But this brings me back to a point that I hoped I didn't have to make last week. Does this mean that the flashback stuff is over? Because, like I said, we're pretty much caught up to present day Book of Boba Fett. So, are we not going to see any more flashbacks? I mean, obviously the majority of the story has been told through these flashbacks already. So, I don't think we're going to need to. But I really liked that they were taking this sort of Arrow / Once Upon a Time approach, where we see certain stuff happening in the present day, but also some flashback stuff giving extra content to the stuff happening in the present day, and the stuff in the present day giving extra content to the flashbacks stuff. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But then obviously the next thing Boba Fett does is go to Mos Espa in his armor. We see Black Chrysanthemum again, which makes me so happy that Black Chrysanthemum wasn't just a one-trick pony, that he didn't just show up in the second episode, did nothing, showed up in the third episode, showed why he is the Black Chrysanthemum that we know and remember and must be feared, but then gets defeated again and is no longer a part of the show. I like that Black Chrysanthemum is still a part of the show, and I love him just going to town on the Trandoshans. We see Black Chrysanthemum sticking to his guns and just ripping the guy's arms off, as Wookiees are known to do, and refusing the other Twi'lek woman's offer of wiping his bar tab clean. Obviously, we can then get another scene of Boba Fett with Black Chrysanthemum. I'm still a little curious as to do the showrunners know the history that Black Chrysanthemum has with Boba Fett, because they've been thick as thieves at one point in the comic books during the years between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So I'm and even before that. So I'm hoping we'll get to see some more flashbacks with Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum. Maybe a version of Black Chrysanthemum will show up in the Obi-Wan show. And for those of you who don't know, again, it's confirmed canon in the comics. Obi-Wan is the one that gave Black Chrysanthemum the scar. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to keep repeating that on these recap shows before the shows eventually will choose to show it. But yeah, Black Chrysanthemum is a much bigger character than people think he is. So hopefully we get to see more of that. Black Chrysanthemum is now part of Boba Fett's tribe, with Fennec Shand, with the Gamorrean guards who are now loyal to him, with the Rancor, with presumably Danny Trejo's character, and obviously with the bikers. We get a nice dinner scene straight out of a mob movie of Boba Fett trying to make sure that all the other crime families of Tatooine stay neutral while he takes on the Pikes, and he uses his newly acquired Rancor to threaten them and to make sure they stay in line. And then obviously the episode ends with Fennec Shand making a comment that muscle is always easy to find if you know where to look, or if you can pay enough. I can't remember the exact quote, but then obviously the Mandalorian's theme kicks in, which took me by surprise at first, but now I realize it's kind of a lead into Din Djarin's probably going to show up maybe at some point, potentially the next episode, who knows, which will be a nice lead into a nice follow-up to this episode, which is in this episode. In the flashbacks, we see Mando's ship, the Razor Crest, R.I.P. the Razor Crest, and we see the events leading up to Boba Fett finding Fennec. Maybe the next step of the flashbacks is the lead up to finding Din Djarin on Tython, intercut with Din Djarin showing up in the present day of the show. So who knows? A lot of possibilities on this show. I'm loving where the show is going. I'm really enjoying the direction of the show so far, and it's always great to see the Slave One in action, and I just love that finally showing the Slave One in these recap episodes makes sense, because it's Boba Fett's signature shit. Anyways, like I said, I really enjoyed this episode. A lot of stuff I didn't like about it. It's definitely not my favorite episode of the show, but I'm still liking the episodes, and I like where the show is going now. So that's really all I can say for now. And yeah, only 4 more episodes left. Hopefully the show can keep up the consistency of goodness, as I like to call it, in the second half of this season. But that's really all my thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett episode 4. Let me know what you guys think about this episode. Let me know what your predictions are for the next couple of episodes. And just, in general, may the Force be with you. Because you can't really have a Star Wars property without saying that line. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.
Hello again, everybody! I really hope you enjoyed this video, because I really enjoyed making it. So, if you like what you've seen here, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content like this. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you guys next time.